But we do that. I do that. It's just like, okay, just get through it. And then just getting through it, there's just another bunch of stuff to just get through tomorrow.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, overwhelmed Christians.
Go on.
Who would rather not live in being busy and overwhelmed, and who need reminded. And that's why we designed the show, is to be a daily reminder of the CSCs. Because we need a daily reminder of the CSCs.
Yeah. Yes, we're talking to ourselves.
Exactly. I'm Liz Frerichs, and this is my husband, Evan.
Hello.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us today. As I announced yesterday, in case you missed yesterday's podcast, we're going to be doing a class for the new year. So
yeah, we're both very excited. It's going to be practical, and it's going to be more in depth than the podcast, and it's really fun for us to think about. So I'm excited to be able to talk about it more.
It's going to be awesome. This week we are talking about the holidays, just to try to kind of remind us all this is how we not just survive during the holidays, but thrive during the holidays.
So yeah, not just surviving. I think that's the key, especially to surrender. I think, like we've talked about before, we are surrendered. I mean, I hope we can all see that now and continue to notice that in our own lives. So we're either surrendered to the busy and the chaos, or surrendered more to what God's plan is and the peace.
Right.
And I think part of the irony of it is that God designed holidays. He designed times for us to slow down and have festivals and feasts and things like that, and yet we wrap it all up in expectations and stress and anxiety.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I was blogging today, Christmas is, or last week, I guess it would be technically, but Christmas is to celebrate peace, but it's like the least peaceful time of year.
Yeah.
The busiest.
Yeah. I know, well, at least in our culture. And I'm not saying God invented Christmas, but the ideas of holidays. I think if we don't, I think when when we're not intentional about what we're surrendering to, then it's real easy to fall into the just do and do and do, and then we lose sight of why we're doing it and why bother, and we turn into bah humbug, and it just seems like it's about whatever's right in front of us, whatever that is. The lights or the shopping or the holiday Christmas special.
Right. I think it's so easy to get in power through mode, where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to get through today. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm just going to survive today. And as soon as your brain switches into I'm surviving today, at least for me, that's a key word that makes me go, oh, something's wrong. I switched into survival mode, and that is not a good thing. That's not where I want to be. I mean, we've talked before about how God puts treasures in our day. And if we're completely focused on, I'm going from A to B to C to D, and you're white knuckling your plan through the day, there's no room for God to do something, Yeah, I wrote that powering through leads to an empty life. I know for me, it's so easy to get focused on, if I just do the next thing, eventually, sometime, I will be fully caught up and things will magically be better.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of. That comes back to when my situation is thus, then I'll sleep when I'm dead type thing. Or I'll have peace when what? Tomorrow morning?
Right.
I mean, why are you going to have more peace tomorrow morning than you can have right now?
Yeah.
If we're just getting through the day. But we do that. I do that. It's just okay, just get through it. And then just getting through it, there's just another bunch of stuff to just get through tomorrow.
Right. Well, and we want to enjoy life. And I know that sounds completely countercultural here, especially I think in Christianity sometimes we forget that God, yes, the world is broken. Yes, Jesus said we're going to have trouble in this world. But at the same time, he has so many blessings for us here and now. We need to enjoy those things. And if we're white knuckling our way through, there's no room for any of that.
Yeah. I think the whole key to that, I mean, when Jesus is talking about the kingdom is here on earth, I mean, that was part of his mission, was to proclaim that. But the way you get there is through meekness and all the things on the Sermon on the Mount, not through
Right.
like power and like controlling my schedule and controlling the outcomes of everything and making this the biggest, best Christmas ever. And
Yeah.
it's the opposite of that, but it's so counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to say, okay, I'm going to be intentional about having my schedule in an open hand and creating margin. I mean, when we went through and actually initially we wrote down our schedule and it was like, oh, no wonder I'm so stressed. There is like zero wiggle room here. And so then when I decided that margin was a value for me and for the kids, I wrote out another schedule that actually had margin in it, and it has made such a difference because it means that, I'm not constantly going, all right, you have 30 seconds
Right.
to switch to your next activity or whatever,
Yeah. It just builds anxiety constantly.
Right.
I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at the beginning of the show. The wisdom of the season or the wisdom of a break in general, like that's God's wisdom. The wisdom
Right.
of a festival or a break, a holiday.
Right.
I think we want to surrender to that. And that's kind of the furthest thing from our minds sometimes.
Seriously.
Especially when it's like, I've got a party to plan. I've got gifts to buy. Like, to do the thing, give ourselves like a month of running around with our head chopped off. We're running around like a chicken with its head cut off work.
Yeah.
And that takes away from, I don't know, like when I do that, I get to the family gathering and I'm just like, well, I just want to take a nap now. And I'm not there with the people I'm supposed to be there with.
Right.
Because I spend all my energy, for being frantic.
Yeah, it's exhausting. And even just, it's amazing to me how much more exhausting it is to do something, in a relaxed, moving from one thing to the next, but I'm not stressed about it, versus being like, all right, we got to get these 10 things done. Like, it takes me less time when I'm calm and when I'm, leaving margin and trying to just go through my day in a relaxed way. It's just like if you punch in Tai Chi, one of the values is to be relaxed because, you can do this, like just, make a fist, tense your arm, put it up against a wall, and then relax your arm and hold the fist. Not like tensely hold the fist, but keep your arm in a fist. And you'll be able to see, like, there's a difference. Your arm can go further when you're relaxed versus when you're tense.
So you have a farther reach.
Right. You have a further reach. You have greater stamina. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that we expend way more energy than we need to.
Yeah, I think, so what would you say, like when you had the example of your schedule, you had a schedule that was just jam-packed, and then you had a schedule with downtime in it. Mm-hmm. Like
no margin.
Right. But I think people might hear us saying that, and they're like, well, I would have to cut something.
Yes.
So how do you...
That is exactly what it was. It was like, okay, well, what are we going to cut?
Sure.
And so we went through and we actually, in practicality, some of the things are the same. Like, for instance, one of the things that I cut was instead of trying to start working by 2:30, I try to start work by 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And so then I put lots of little 5-minute chunks in between each thing.
5-minute chunks of...
Just like, okay, we're going to
transition
move,
time.
right, transition time from one thing to the next. And because I added that transition time, I was more relaxed with the kids. And, we were getting done between 3 and 3:30 anyway, for the most part. But because I just scheduled it that way instead of scheduling it at 2:30 and being like, okay.
Before you're like, I've got to start writing at 2:30, and it would never happen.
Right.
And now
I'm super stressed and frustrated. And now I say, okay, I'm going to try to start by 3 o'clock. And we're going to take all these little breaks in here. half the time we get done by 2:30, because we're just like, I'm less like, okay, guys, come on, get this thing done, keep moving. Yeah. So
it seems like you're cutting something really important, like you're taking half an hour away of work.
Right.
But what you're really cutting out is all the stress and the like hype.
Yeah. And by doing that, the kids are so much more pliable.
Yeah. Well, and I think we could totally apply that to the holiday rigmarole. I mean,
I was actually just thinking that today.
Yeah.
I mean, we have had a lot of stuff on our schedule, and the girls and I were talking about what else do we want to get done before Christmas? It's like, I think we need to cut one of these things and just say, okay, we're going to have downtime. And maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if we still end up doing the same things that we wanted to do anyway, but giving ourselves permission to skip something.
Take the pressure off.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's where priorities come in too. It's like, how important is this really? I mean, it's on our list, but is it just on the list because it was on there last year?
Right. Well, and something we talked about yesterday is recognizing what can slide. Mm-hmm. And for us, one of the things is our house, because we have a system in place to keep our house clean. And yeah, it gets frustrating when it's like, it's been 4 days, we haven't cleaned anything. But at the same time, it only takes us a couple days to get back on track. So, when I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking about last week. We were trying to get ready to go to a Christmas party, and I was like, okay, we got to make all this stuff. And then a neighbor stopped by, and I was able to just be like, okay, Lord, I am going to trust that you are putting this experience in my life for a reason. So instead of cleaning up the kitchen before we left, and I threw my casserole in the oven, which took like an extra 5 minutes, but then I just went out and stood and talked to her for 20 minutes versus being like, okay, yes, nice that you stopped by. See you later,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can let some things slide and then have room to just be there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's an example of trying to know and understand God's priorities and his economy, which is way more about relationships than clean kitchens.
Right.
And acting in that and trusting that it's a good decision.
Yeah. If you ask yourself, is this going to make a difference in 10 years from now? Well, if my kitchen is messy today and it gets cleaned up in 2 or 3 days, is that going to make a difference 10 years from now? Mm-hmm. No. But a conversation that I have with somebody, that might make a difference 10 years from now.
Yeah. I was just struggling with this before we started recording. I was having trouble jotting down what we were going to talk about, and you'd already finished what you thought we'd talk about, and you went out to get a drink or something. And I was looking around our office, and I was like, maybe I should tidy up some of the papers. And that wouldn't have been productive at all. It might have made me feel better to have a little bit more of a clear desk, but
right.
I was like, okay, that's a good example now. And then I could start, what are we supposed to be doing right now is working on this show. I feel like God's laid it on our hearts. So that's in his economy. That's a better choice than making sure the office is clean right this second. Exactly.
Yeah. And when we surrender to that stuff, we don't even realize how much time we lose to stress. And I was just watching a video this weekend about context switching and how much every time our brain switches gears, it takes a few minutes to be like, okay, or even just a few seconds, but it takes time for our brain to be like, what was I doing? How do okay, right, that's what I'm doing. Here's how I move forward. And then if 5 minutes later you switch context, and your brain has to be like, what was I doing? How do I do that? Okay. And we don't realize that we're losing, hours of time sometimes to just not being, focused on the thing that we're doing right now and staying there.
Yeah. You kind of described that in your ideal schedule with the girls now, where there's that time to switch wavelengths in your brain from, math to science, or from eating breakfast to whatever. And it's built in. And so then during the actual time of that subject in school, it's like my
so
brain
much more productive.
can just do math for the whole time.
Right.
Instead of bouncing around. So it's trying to be intentional And it's tricky, especially when you've got children, trying to model it and teach them how to do it themselves.
Right. So with the Christmas schedule, try to hold it with an open hand, because the Lord has good plans for this holiday. Sometimes it's hard for me to remember, to be like, wait, there's any good in Christmas at all? Yeah. But there is.
Yeah, and it's good to, as a culture, take a day off and spend time with the people you love. That's a great thing.
All right, we love you guys, and we are praying for you, both that you are able to see when you're using the CSCs, or when the CSCs would be helpful, and that you're growing in freedom and abundance and peace. Thanks to everybody that's been sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this podcast helpful, please do continue to share it with people. The more people that are living in the CSCs, the healthier the body of Christ is.
And there's more information to come about that class we're putting together. Watch our Facebook group and our Twitter. We'll put it out wherever we can as soon as we have all the details together.
Yep.
And we'll definitely be talking about it on here.
All right. Have an awesome week, you guys.
Talk to you later.